It's the kind of day that should have been a victory. One of those moments where the world should have felt like it was cheering me on. I sat in the middle of our pristine living room, the letter from Columbia University trembling slightly in my hands. The soft hum of the city echoed outside the floor-to-ceiling windows, the skyline sprawling beneath the glowing afternoon sun. It was a moment of triumph, the culmination of years of hard work, a future unfolding before me. My parents' faces should have reflected the pride I felt, but instead, I watched them exchange a glance that didn't match the excitement I'd expected. The silence felt like a cold wave, creeping into the warmth of my joy. As I waited for their words of congratulations, I realized something was wrong. But that afternoon, everything fell apart when I learned what truly mattered to them. I couldn't wait to share the news. I stood up, holding the letter high, my voice trembling with excitement. I got in, Mom, Dad, Columbia University. I waited for the joy to radiate from their faces, the congratulatory smiles I had always imagined in this moment, but instead, they just looked at me, neutral, almost cold. My mother entered the room first, her heels clicking on the hardwood floor, her usual grace now tempered by something unfamiliar. My father followed, his sharp suit and slicked-back hair offering no comfort, his eyes uncharacteristically distant. They didn't rush toward me, didn't engulf me in a hug as I had expected. Instead, they exchanged another look, this time a flicker of unease. Then it hit me. "Sweetheart, we need to talk," my father began, his voice heavy with something I couldn't place. "Jack has an opportunity." Jack, the golden child, the one who always seemed to be the center of their world. My chest tightened as I listened. My mother continued, her tone softer, but there was no warmth behind it. "Jack has been offered a chance to partner in a tech startup, a really big one." She paused, glancing at my father. "We've decided that we'll be using your college savings to help fund his venture." My heart slammed in my chest. "Wait, what? My savings?" I felt dizzy, the world tilting beneath me. "Yes," my father said. "The $150,000 you've saved for college, it's going to Jack." My mother's lips twitched. "You can always take out loans, Natalie, or consider community college." I felt my heart race as I stared at my parents, trying to wrap my mind around what they were saying. What about my dreams, my future? The words felt like they were tearing out of me, each syllable heavier than the last. "I've worked so hard for this. This is my chance." My father's face remained impassive, his jaw set in that familiar, stone-hard way. "We're thinking about the family interests, Natalie. Jack's opportunity is a once-in-a-lifetime thing. You need to understand that." He paused, his voice lowering in a way that made my skin prickle. This could change the world. I felt the room spin, the walls closing in. My father's words were like a punch to the gut. Jack's opportunity. Jack's chance to change the world. "What about me?" I choked out, my voice thick with disbelief. "What about everything I've done? All those years I spent studying, pushing myself for a future that doesn't even matter to you?" My mother crossed her arms, her expression icy. "We've made our choice, Natalie. Jack's going to take the leap. And you? Well, you can take out loans. Or consider community college. It's not the end of the world." The coldness in her voice made my chest ache. I could hardly breathe, my mind scrambling to process what was happening. They had made their decision, and I was nothing more than an afterthought, an inconvenience in their pursuit of Jack's dream. My father's eyes darkened, his voice rising in anger. "Enough! You've been asking too many questions. This is the way it's going to be." I stood frozen, feeling a gut-wrenching sense of betrayal. Everything I had worked for, everything I dreamed of, was nothing compared to Jack's once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Something inside me snapped that afternoon. I could feel it, like a fragile thread finally breaking under the weight of too many years of pretending. My mind raced, a torrent of thoughts crashing together. How many times had I been second to Jack? How many times had I worked harder, pushed further, only to watch him coast through life, taking every bit of their attention, every ounce of their praise? I had spent my entire life meeting their expectations. Perfect grades, volunteering, academic awards. I had given them everything, and yet it was never enough. Jack could stumble, fail, make mistake after mistake, and still get their full support, their unwavering belief in his potential. The fury within me slowly morphed into something colder, something more dangerous. I wasn't going to play their game anymore. I would no longer be the one who always had to meet their standards, who had to bend and break to fit their mold. I was done. In a flash of clarity, I knew what I had to do. I couldn't stay here, couldn't live under the weight of their expectations any longer. I didn't want their money. I didn't need their approval. I wanted to prove to myself and to them that I could succeed on my own terms. I grabbed my essentials, clothes, my passport, the documents I'd need. The $200 I'd saved up from tutoring jobs felt like a small fortune now. It wasn't much, but it was enough. I wasn't going to wait around for them to give me permission to live my life. With a deep breath, I stepped out the door, my heart pounding with the weight of the decision, but also with the undeniable thrill of freedom. I moved quickly, but every motion was deliberate. I didn't have time to second-guess myself, but I knew I had to pack with purpose. The last thing I wanted was to be caught off guard, so I took only what I absolutely needed: clothes, my laptop, a few documents, and the few $100s I'd saved up from tutoring. Everything else was unnecessary. The rest of the life I had built here, the life they wanted me to live, could stay behind. Downstairs, my parents were oblivious, their voices muffled by the walls. But I could hear Jack's laugh, clearly, echoing through the house. It was a sound that made my blood boil. He was probably down there, collecting more money from them, all while I was being told to take out loans and settle for less. It was enough to make my hands shake as I typed out the emails. The first one was to Columbia, declining their offer. I didn't mention the real reason, of course. How could I? Instead, I simply said that the financial burden was too much for me to bear. The second email was to my parents. I wrote it, quickly, with a cold detachment that surprised even me. You've made your choice. Now, I'm making mine. Don't look for me. I'm leaving. I hit send without a second thought. The weight of the words felt final, irreversible. I turned off my phone, severing all ties. It felt liberating, in a way, but also terrifying. I moved to the window, my heart hammering in my chest, and climbed down the trellis. The night air hit me like a slap, sharp and crisp. Without looking back, I walked away, leaving behind everything I had known, every trace of the life I thought I wanted. I walked through the city streets, my backpack heavy with everything I owned. $200, my laptop, a few clothes, and a fierce, burning determination to prove myself. The buildings loomed overhead, indifferent to my tiny existence in this sprawling, urban maze. It was exhilarating and terrifying all at once, the pavement beneath my feet echoing the uncertainty of every step I took. The reality of what I had done hit me in waves. I was alone. There was no safety net. No more parents' house to return to. No more comfortable routine. Just me and the pavement stretching ahead, offering no answers. My stomach rumbled with hunger, but I ignored it. I had no plan, no clear idea of what came next. My feet carried me to the familiar glow of a 24-hour diner, a place I had often come to for solace when things felt too heavy. The neon sign buzzed softly above the door as I slipped inside, the warm, greasy smell of food enveloping me like a blanket. It was familiar, comforting in a way, but also a reminder of just how far I had fallen. I sat at the counter, counting my remaining cash on the table, $178.42. The number stung. It wasn't much, not nearly enough for what I needed, but it was all I had. With nowhere else to go, I took a deep breath and summoned the courage to ask the waitress, Maria, if the diner was hiring. She raised an eyebrow, sizing me up with a knowing look. "You looking for work?" I nodded, feeling the weight of my vulnerability pressing down on me. Maria sighed, her voice softening. "Kitchen helper. The hours are long and the pay is low, but it's something." Relief flooded through me. "I'll be here tomorrow," I said, determination rising in my chest. I wasn't giving up. Not yet. I checked into the cheapest motel I could find, the neon sign flickering above the door. The room was small, cramped, and smelled faintly of old cigarettes and cleaning products, but it was a roof over my head. A roof that, for now, felt like a small victory in itself. I dropped my backpack onto the bed, the thin mattress creaking under the weight. I pulled out my laptop, the screen flickering to life as I sat cross-legged on the bed. The harsh glow of the motel's fluorescent lights flickered above, but I was too focused to care. I had a plan. I wasn't just going to survive, I was going to make something happen. I thought back to the tutoring sessions I had held back in high school, helping wealthy kids with advanced subjects like calculus and physics. I had spent hours helping them with material I mastered years ago, but never once had I thought about using those skills for myself. Until now. I opened a new document and began drafting a business idea. A tutoring business, online this time. Using my knowledge from AP Computer Science, I started building a website. I could feel the thrill of creation surging through me as I designed a professional-looking site in a few hours. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. As the night dragged on, I felt a flicker of something, hope. This wasn't the life I had envisioned, but it was mine. And it was a path I was choosing for myself. The days blurred together, each one a grind that pushed me further away from the person I used to be. By day, I worked at the diner, long shifts where I learned the ropes of running a small business, how to handle the stress, the cash flow, and even the quirks of the regulars. Maria became my mentor, teaching me the ins and outs of inventory management, customer relations, and how to read people. She had a way of sizing people up in seconds, a skill I began to appreciate as I watched her navigate the daily chaos with an effortless calm. By night, I became someone else. Kate Morgan. I created an identity, hiding behind a name that wasn't mine. It felt like the only way I could keep the distance between my old life and the one I was building. With that new name came a new purpose, building my tutoring business from the ground up. I worked tirelessly on my website, refining it, making it more professional with each passing day. Slowly, the clients started coming in. Word spread about Kate Morgan, the brilliant tutor who could guarantee results. A wealthy family, one of Maria's regulars at the diner, was the first to hear about me. They hired me for their daughter, and I quickly became the go-to tutor for families with high expectations and deep pockets. Within a few months, my schedule was packed. Clients were coming in faster than I could handle. And finally, I had enough to quit the diner job. The relief was overwhelming. I was no longer bound by the constraints of my old life. Kate Morgan was now the only person I needed to be. My business was thriving. Clients flooded in, one after another, and I was finally able to quit the diner. I had enough to focus entirely on my tutoring business, and it felt like the world had opened up in front of me. I worked with multiple families now, helping students improve their grades, boost their SAT scores, and strengthen their college admissions prospects. Each success story felt like a personal victory, a testament to my determination to build something on my own without relying on anyone else's approval or financial support. But as my own life began to take shape, I couldn't help but notice the cracks forming in my parents' world. They were still pursuing Jack's startup dream, pouring money into it like it was their last hope. But the reality was clear. The venture was faltering. The money was running out faster than they could raise it, and the weight of their choices was beginning to show. Strangely, I felt no sympathy. I had been a pawn in their game for so long, and now, watching them struggle, I felt a bitter satisfaction. It was a small, quiet victory. They had gambled everything on Jack's dreams, sacrificing mine in the process. And now, as their financial stability crumbled, I knew I had made the right choice to leave. It was a reminder that sometimes the price of independence isn't just freedom. It's also knowing when to walk away. And I had walked away, stronger than I ever thought I could be. 10 years had passed, and everything had changed. I sat in the sleek, glass-walled corporate boardroom, my eyes scanning the room full of potential investors. Across from me, my parents sat at the head of the table, pitching their failing startup to anyone who would listen. They didn't recognize me, at least not at first. I was no longer the daughter they had dismissed as the practical one, the one who would always be overshadowed by Jack and his grand ambitions. Now, I was the one in control. My tutoring business had evolved into an educational consulting empire. I had built it from nothing, brick by brick, without their help or financial support. I'd poured every ounce of myself into it, driven by the desire to prove I could make it on my own terms. And now, as I watched them, I realized, with a sense of cold clarity, they were the ones needing help. Their startup was a sinking ship, and they were desperate for investors, for any kind of financial lifeline they could find. My parents, who had once told me to take out loans and consider community college, were now sitting before me, asking for assistance. As the meeting wore on, I felt a wave of satisfaction wash over me. I had done it all without them, without their money, without their approval. I had bet everything on myself, and I had won. And in that moment, I knew I had made the right choice all those years ago. My freedom, my independence, was worth more than anything they could have offered.